Start. So we are here tonight to talk about citizens, not politicians, and signature gathering specifically for it. So if you're tuning in tonight, hopefully you are tuning in because you are ready to gather signatures for this constitutional amendment, the Citizens, Not Politicians Amendment. That has been gathering signatures for a few months now, but OEC, we're starting our volunteer program here at the beginning of the new year. We're excited to have you joining us. Um, and we're excited to really get the ball rolling and make sure that the environmental perspective on uh, redistricting is part of this campaign, and you all are essential to that as people who care about this issue and want to, get signatures from your community. So I am Chris Tavner. I am the Ohio Environmental Council's General Counsel, and I have two of my colleagues here with me today to participate in this training and provide their expertise. Riley, how about you go first, and then Franklin can go next.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Riley Dean. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the political associate for the Ohio Environmental Council. So thanks for joining us tonight. I will pass it over to Franklin.
Hey everybody, my name is Franklin Davis. I'm the director of climate and democracy organizing with the Ohio Environmental Council, and I use he, him pronouns.
All right, thank you both. So we are going to go ahead and dive in. So, so everybody's on the same page. Our goals for today are to make sure that you understand the basics of the Citizens Not Politicians ballot initiative and the constitutional amendment that we're trying to pass. Learn how to gather signatures for the amendment. Hopefully you'll make a plan to pick up your petition from the OEC, and then also make a plan to start gathering your first signatures. And we have a few ideas about how you can do that. We've got a volunteer day that we're planning that you can participate in, but you also can get started on your own time as well. So that's the goals for today. We should be done with our presentations in about 30 to 40 minutes, and we'll have plenty of time for Q&A and answering any questions that you may have about how signature gathering plays out. So we're going to go ahead and dive in. So first off, make sure everybody understands, the OEC's role and how we play a role in the democracy fight here in Ohio. We have three main goals as an organization when it comes to democracy in Ohio. With the Citizens Not Politicians Amendment, the whole goal of the Citizens Not Politicians Amendment from our perspective is that by November 2026, so 3 years from now, Ohioans are voting under maps that's created by an independent redistricting commission that reflects both communities of interest while achieving partisan fairness. That is, if we pass Citizens Not Politicians, in the future, in that November 2026 election, we will actually have a map and a new process under which Ohioans will have fair maps and not gerrymandered maps. We also believe in engaging at the local level through civic engagement strategies to build action-taking power for Ohio's environmental movement and to advocate for essential expansions to the voting rights of Ohioans. And this amendment does all three of those things. So we're glad you're here joining us for that fight. If you've been in Ohio for a while, you're probably familiar with the gerrymandering story that Ohio has faced. But I think it's important that we all remind ourselves why this amendment is necessary. Back in 2021, Ohioans had a new redistricting process that was actually, created by constitutional amendments back in 2015 and 2018. But unfortunately, that process still resulted in gerrymandered maps. On the left, we have one of the first gerrymandered maps in that process that the State House passed for the State House. And then on the right, we have the congressional map they passed that were unfortunately just very partisan, a significant amount of partisan bias for one party, for creating supermajorities in the State House and a 80% congressional delegation. Now, there were lawsuits that OEC was involved in over the course of 2021, 2022 that ended up resulting in changes to these original maps, but they were still ultimately gerrymandered in the end. The Ohio Supreme Court ruled every single time that those maps were gerrymandered, but unfortunately, our legislature and the Ohio Redistricting Commission just refused to listen to the Supreme Court's decisions, continually passing gerrymandered maps until they forced Ohioans in November 2022 to vote under gerrymandered maps. And so ultimately, that really revealed the necessity of just getting politicians entirely out of the process. which is why we now have the Citizens Not Politicians Amendment that we're here to talk about today. So hopefully none of that was news to you, but if maybe you're new to Ohio and you're getting involved in this fight, that gives you a little bit of the background of why Citizens Not Politicians Amendment is important for Ohio here and now. But one of the other reasons why OEC engages in redistricting work is that the way that districts are drawn can directly impact the way that communities that are experiencing environmental injustices can represent themselves in the State House or in Congress. We have a variety of resources on our website that dive deeper into this issue if you want to learn more. But ultimately, when politicians create gerrymandered districts, they split apart communities that are experiencing environmental risks like air pollution, water pollution, in order to pursue their partisan goals. And so here on the left, we have what was one of the original versions of District 1 back in 2021, Cincinnati's district, that was drawn in such a haphazard way that it's dividing Cincinnati and other communities around Cincinnati in order to achieve a particular partisan outcome. And then at the same time, it's splitting apart communities that have similar air pollution impacts that they share. And then on the right side, we have the State House district around Dayton that had a similar impact. So we have more resources on our website if you want to learn more about this link. But it's important to ground, if you are coming to this as an environmentalist, this is more than just about the political makeup of state houses. This is also about ensuring communities who have environmental impacts that they share have the ability to represent themselves properly in our legislatures. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Riley to talk us to ground us a little bit more firmly in what the Citizens Not Politicians Amendment is all about. So you have a little bit better understanding of what is actually in the amendment.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So like Chris mentioned, how do we combat these injustices and create a fair and transparent process through the Citizens Not Politicians ballot initiative? We will share these slides with everyone after this training is over, but you can read the entire petition that folks will be signing on the Citizens Not Politicians website, where there's a lot of great information about this amendment. So what is this campaign all about? In short, it's about Ohio voters picking their politicians, not politicians picking their voters, as has been the case for far too long. The Citizens Not Politicians Amendment does so by creating the 15-member Ohio Citizens Redistricting Commission, made up of Democratic, Republican, and independent citizens who broadly represent the different geographic areas and demographics of the state, and current or former politicians, party officials, and lobbyists would be banned from sitting on this commission. The amendment would require fair and impartial districts by making it unconstitutional to draw voting districts that discriminate against or favor any political party or individual politician. Moving on to the next slide. In the state of Ohio, we want to see fair districts and a transparent process, not gerrymandered districts. This amendment would help us accomplish this goal by completely eliminating politicians from the map drawing process and blocking partisan favoritism in this process as well. The amendment would require the Citizens Redistricting Commission to operate under an open and independent process and require that this commission accounts for communities of interest as an area where the record demonstrates the existence of communities of people with broadly shared interests and representational needs. This means including those that arise from common ethnic, racial, social, cultural, geographic, environmental, socioeconomic, or historic identities of concern. And if you have any questions, remember to feel free to put them in the Q&A function and in the chat, and we'll answer them either in real time or at the end of this training. And then moving on, here you can see the campaign's timeline. We have successfully achieved a lot of the behind the scenes activities needed to start collecting signatures. And now we're at the time between November 20th, where the amendment was approved and the campaign was allowed to start collecting signatures, and July 3rd, where the campaign needs to submit 413,487 valid signatures of registered voters for the amendment to make the ballot. That is a lot of signatures, and we need to collect even more than that to make sure we have enough valid signatures. And this is where all of you come in. So I'll pass it back to Chris to start talking about the process of signature gathering.
Thanks, Riley. And I want to emphasize that when Riley was talking about the communities of interest aspect of the Citizens Not Politicians Amendment, The environmental language is in there, and we're really excited that it's in there because that means that when this amendment passes and where we end up, advocating to the commission about what the maps can look like, we can tell those environmental narratives that people experience and say these communities that experience these environmental injustices can be represented together. Real quick, before I kind of move on to the particularities of gathering signatures, we have two really great questions in the chat that I'll answer live. So Jesse asked, what are some states that have already have a bill similar to citizens, not politicians? So the best example for Ohio is Michigan back in 2018 passed an independent redistricting constitutional amendment that there's a lot of similarities between Ohio's language and what Michigan has just to the north of us. If you're someone who plays into the whole, Ohio versus Michigan narrative, we can't let Michigan have a better system than us, great question, Jesse. And then Paco asked, how can you join the commission? And the commission doesn't exist yet, so that's not something we can do yet. But when the commission is created through the constitutional amendment, there will be an application process that the commission gets created, and then it'll be a panel of retired judges that reviews the applications and determines that selection process. So the selection process is a little bit more complicated than that, but that's kind of the gist, that there will be a way for people to apply. There will be restrictions on who can apply. So for instance, if you have ever been a registered lobbyist or a political candidate, you can't apply. But then a group of retired judges will review those applications. Great initial questions. So for signature gathering, here are a few of the basic rules regarding who can be a signature gatherer. So hopefully you fit all of these circumstances. So that you're 18 years old and that you're a US citizen. Those are first two requirements. You don't need to be an Ohio resident. So, if you don't live in Ohio right now, but you really care about Ohio politics, you can volunteer to come in and gather signatures. You also don't need to be a registered voter in Ohio. However, ultimately, Ohio voters and Ohio residents are going to be some of the best messengers for this amendment because it directly impacts, our lives here in Ohio. And there is a note here at the bottom too, that if you have been convicted of a felony in the past, your eligibility to circulate signatures can depend on the date of your conviction. So if that does apply to you, we have the email of the Citizens Not Politicians team here, and they can help determine whether or not you are eligible. Otherwise, here are kind of the basics of what we're going to need for gathering signatures. You're going to need the petition. So hopefully at the end of this training, you have a plan to come get a petition from us. I actually have a box of them right behind my desk. We're really excited to get them in the hands of people, as well as our staff members. I know Riley and Franklin and I are really excited to start gathering signatures, both from staff and friends and family as well. And then a plan for gathering signatures. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Who you can ask first? What's your initial plan? There's some ideas that we'll have later to talk through. And then you'll fill out the petition. Once it's filled out, you'll bring it back to us and then get a new one. That's the basics of what you're going to be doing. What we would ask you to do right now is click, if you can use the QR code on the screen, use that, or you can put the bit.ly into your browser. By the end of tonight, we'll ask you to kind of fill out that form. That'll help us figure out how exactly to get you a petition. If you're here in Central Ohio, you can come to the office pretty easily and pick up a petition from us. But if you live outside of Central Ohio, we'll just need to coordinate with you to figure out where you can get a petition, whether it's from us, maybe one of our staff members can drive to you, or somebody from the Citizens Not Politicians campaign could potentially get you a petition. But we want to make sure you get one. So if you fill out that form, that'll determine us the best way that we'll be able to get you a petition later, maybe next week, or even earlier than that potentially. So when you have a petition in hand, there are a few rules you have to follow in order to make sure that every single signature is valid. This is really important because the Secretary of State's office will invalidate signatures for a variety of different reasons, and we want to make sure that every signature counts as much as possible. One fun fact is that usually volunteer gathered signatures have the highest validity rate as opposed to paid signature gatherers. usually that's a good sign. If you're a volunteer, you're probably going to do a pretty good job. But there are still rules we have to follow here. So first off, every petition can only have signatures from one county. So you'll get a petition, and let's say you live in Franklin County, you'll write Franklin at the top. Funny because we got Franklin on the call here with us, but the county, not Franklin Davis. So you write Franklin, and then you could only gather signatures of voters who are registered in Franklin County. If you happen to say live up in Dublin, Ohio, which is close to Delaware County as well, or Franklin, who lives, actually Franklin, I believe you live in Licking County, even though you're in Reynoldsburg, which kind of bridges that border. You could have two petitions. You could have a Franklin County petition and a Licking County petition that you're carrying around with you because you never know who you're going to run into because of the community you live in. But ultimately, you got to make sure you have registered voters from only one county signing the petition labeled with that county. And just, emphasizing this a little bit more, this is what the signature page is going to look like. And you need to be making sure that every county that people are signing from, it's the same county. And so that's absolutely essential because it can really impact the way that the signatures of an entire petition book are counted. Important rule, you cannot sign for someone else. Hopefully that was an obvious rule, but you have to have other people sign. You must observe the signing as well. So when you're out talking with someone, you've got to, they'll say, yes, I'll sign. So you watch them fill out the information and you watch them sign. You cannot legally step away. You have to observe them sign. That's part of the rules of the petition circulation. But they got to put their legal first name, their legal last name, their address. That needs to be where they're registered to vote, and that's very important. So there might be students, especially for, I believe one of the people on this training mentioned that they are with the OSU student group. If you are registering students, they need to put the address where they're registered to vote. So this may get a little bit difficult for you at OSU, but not impossible. You may need to have, in some sense, almost all 88 counties for Ohio. Hopefully a lot of Ohio OSU students have maybe registered to vote now in Franklin County, but if they haven't, they've got to be putting where they're registered to vote back home. So if it's a student from Toledo up in Lucas County, and they're going to Ohio State, and they've got to sign a Lucas County petition. So makes it a little bit more difficult at college campuses, but not impossible to do. But then they get the city, the county, zip code, and then the date of signature. So the blue boxes, those are all absolutely essential. You don't need to worry about the ward and precinct spot. That's for a different type of petition. But ultimately, everything that's in blue and the red one needs to be filled out. People can put their middle initial, but it's not absolutely necessary. You can help with writing the name, address, and date if the voter needs assistance. But ultimately, it's the signature that you can't sign for them. They've got to do the signature themselves. So then after you filled out your petition book, at the end of your petition book, you as the circulator, you will be signing and filling out this statement of circulating, affirming the things that you've done here. This is a requirement of the petitions that you're affirming that you observed these signatures and that you believe them to be the real signatures of the people who signed. So if you have any questions about this, we can go into more detail, but it's a legal requirement of these petitions. So some do's and don'ts. Make sure you're asking people where they're registered to vote. Only Ohio registered voters may sign the petition. That's absolutely important. If someone's not registered but wants to sign, they can sign the petition and go register to vote on the spot online. So if someone says they're not registered to vote, just be like, great, register to vote, and then have them fill out the petition. You're doing two democracy things in one go. But if they do fill out a paper registration instead of an online registration, then you can actually turn in the voter registration form when you turn in your petitions. We may have some paper voter registration forms on us, but most people can easily register to vote online. Do, as I said earlier, carry multiple booklets. You'll need one per county, so that's important. Like if just bring as many as you need, especially if you're going up visiting some family somewhere where they're all registered to vote. Say if you're going to visit family up in Akron and Summit County, take your book, get a new one, that's for Summit County, and get them all to sign while you're up there. And then finally, on this, if a petition signer makes an error, work with them to draw a line through the entire signature line and then start a fresh one. So it's okay. It's like one signature of a person is done wrong. Just cross it out, make it clear that it's an error and that it just needs to not be counted, and then just start a new box. Important, do not photocopy or print your own petition booklet. Only use books provided by the campaign. One, that ensures that it is properly formatted, but also the campaign has tracking codes, and this is going to be really a key for the campaign to be tracking the signatures and the voters to ensure that the books are going to stay valid. They'll be able to determine if anyone has accidentally signed twice, and you could potentially, that can be an issue if someone accidentally signed the petition somewhere and then signed it again in another place. And that is also another important question that you should ask people. Make sure they haven't signed the book already, because technically, if they've signed a petition and then they sign another petition for the same issue, that's technically violating the law. You don't want people to accidentally violate the law. Also, don't sign your own petition. That's really important. You need to, if you want to sign the petition, you need to sign someone else's petition so that it's actually valid, because you have to have the witness that you're signing. Also, don't leave your petition book unattended. Kind of already said that, but one, you don't want someone to, mess with it while you're not there, but also you've got to witness those signatures. Don't carry someone else's book. This is also important. Per petition book, only one person. So you can't have a petition and then I'm signing, at a library, and then Riley walks up and I'm like, hey, I'm going to take a break. Riley, get some petitions. No, you can't do that. I can't hand my book off to Riley. Riley's got to have her own petition book. Your petition book is yours. Also, do not pay anyone or offer anything of value in return for a signature. This is also very important. You cannot bribe people for signatures. So that was a lot of information, but these are kind of the basics all in one slide here. Make sure people understand what they're signing. If they want to read the amendment, that might take a little while, but absolutely let them. They let people understand what they're signing. Signatures must be from registered Ohio voters. Observe the completion of the petition. Make sure they actually sign it. You don't want someone walking away and then you look at your petition and like, oh, there's no signature. That would be very unfortunate. And then verify that. So that means verify everything before they walk away. And then thank people for signing and encourage them to tell their friends to sign as well. Don't lose that opportunity to encourage them to take action themselves. So with that, I am going to be turning it over to Franklin. Real quick before we do that, I'm going to cover these two Q&As. We'll save the who chooses the judge question for later, but can the circulator fill in the information except for the signature? Steven, yes, technically yes. If someone is really struggling with writing, maybe it's cold out, or maybe they're just difficult at writing, you can ask them, okay, what's your address, what's your voting address, what all the information they need, their name, you can write that all in, and then they will just need to do the signature though. You absolutely cannot do the signature for them. Great. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Franklin to kind of talk through some best practices for talking to folks about what they're signing, encouraging them to sign. Maybe you're nervous about talking with people, all those sorts of things.
Good evening, everyone. All right, so I'm going to start off with talking through best practices for talking with folks. The first two bullet points you see are empathy and respect, and those two really go hand in hand. So we're going to be going out into the field to persuade people, some of whom will already agree with us, and some of whom will need to be persuaded. We must be respectful of everyone that we encounter, their views, and their right to have those views. We must lead with respect, and in return, most times we'll find that it will be given back to us. Sometimes when you're out in the field, it can be really easy to convince a voter to buy into you as a person, and then to sign a petition and support the same position that you support. But as easy as that can be, it can sometimes be even easier to have a negative encounter with someone at a door have them not buy into you as a person and not support that legislation or that ballot initiative as a proxy for their negative encounter with you. And so it will be a disservice to the work and effort that all of you are putting in and that we're all putting in to not gain signatures and votes for this effort because we let our personal thoughts and feelings get in front of the ultimate goal. And so leading with empathy has a lot to do with listening. And so as important as it is to be able to persuade someone by arming yourself with knowledge, persuasion is not just about espousing information at a person. And so the best way to persuade is to have empathy and to listen. And so when we're out in communities, that's an awesome opportunity for you as individuals and us as an organization to learn and then to use what we learn about the challenges facing communities, the thoughts and feelings of those communities to lead the discussions that we're having with people and to craft and present policy solutions to communities that reflect their needs and wants. And so the next two bullet points are persuasive communication and mirror communication. And so persuasive communication is what we are going to be engaging in. It is communication that has an end goal in mind. And so we're trying to lead people to an end goal. And so the most important thing that you can do in that regard is keep that ultimate goal in mind as you are having those conversations. And I found that a really effective technique is to mirror communication. And so if you're having a conversation with someone and they're smiling at you, smile back. If they lean against the wall and it's not something that's uncomfortable for you, then lean against the wall and copy their body language. 90% of communication is nonverbal. And so mirroring people's nonverbal cues tends to put them at ease, and they tend to trust the things that you're saying more through mirroring communication. And then most importantly, be yourself. The reason that all of you are here on this training right now is because you as a person thought that the work that we are engaging in was important enough to lend your time, your thought, and your effort. And so we're really, really excited about the person that you are. And I expect that most times that's going to hold sway and when you're having conversations with people. So be yourself and lead with yourself. When you're trying to be someone that is not who you are naturally, that feeling of discomfort that you have can bleed over into the conversation. And so, especially with persuasive communication, confidence and the ability to believe what you are saying is hugely important. And so, first and foremost, be yourself. Next slide, please. So, where to collect? Wherever you'll see lots of registered voters, that is the first criteria. So some examples of places are at libraries, at community events like festivals and farmers markets, parking lot, busy bus stops, family gatherings. But this is also a place where the be yourself is especially valuable. One of the reasons that it's great to have such a large network of people working toward the same goal is that they can take advantage of their individual networks and the places that they enjoy frequenting with groups of other people. And so an example is my daughter cheers. And so my wife is a cheer mom and I'm a cheer dad. And so with permission, a cheerleading competition might be a great example of a place to collect signatures. When I'm not busy coaching, I like to play softball. And so maybe at the park before or after a softball game might be a great place for you. There's many different places where we can encounter registered voters and have these conversations. And so definitely take advantage of your individuality and your networks to have these conversations and solicit signatures at as many places as possible. And then, of course, aside from the impetus being on you to go out and seek locations for to collect signatures, there are organized signature drive-through to go to as many of these events as you can or are comfortable going to, and get people signed on to the CNP ballot initiative. Next slide, please. And so you may also circulate the petition outside of stores with permission from the store manager, on public sidewalks that run parallel with the street, door to door without having to obtain a permit, outside of most government-owned buildings, and at public parks. These are all great examples of places that can and oftentimes do have a relatively large number of registered voters available to have conversations and hopefully sway to sign our petitions. And so definitely allow this to be inspiration for where to start your signature gathering or signature collection efforts. But don't let this list be the end all be all for you. Next slide, please. And then again, leaning into the be yourself. Find an intro line or an icebreaker that works for you. Some examples are, want to help ban gerrymandering? Or did you know that Ohio is one of the 10 most gerrymandered states in America? How about, want to get politicians out of the map drawing process? There's a lot of flexibility within the intro line that gives you the opportunity to share a little bit of who you are and what you're thinking about, and the reason that you are out collecting signatures and having conversations. Does anybody have any ideas about an intro line that they might want to try?
I'll just say, Franklin, I personally really like the want to get politicians out of the map drawing process, because I feel like whenever I talk to anyone, especially like family members or friends who may be, may not agree with me on a lot of different issues, but whenever I'm like, let's get politicians out of the map drawing process, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. And so I think that's effective ones.
Indeed. I like that one, Paco. Do you want to bring the democratic process back to Ohio? Then Deb, are you familiar with gerrymandering? Would you like to stop it? I have been familiar with gerrymandering for a very, very long time. And the reason that I do this work is because specifically I want to stop it. So that is definitely one that would resonate with me. Does anybody else have any ideas?
Riley, what's your go-to going to be?
Oh man, I like the get politicians out of the map making process too. I think I would probably start with, hi there, do you have a second to help get politicians out of the map making process? So that it's like, look what you're doing, and it only takes like less than a minute.
That is awesome. Well, I think we definitely found one that resonates with our team, but don't be afraid to step outside of that particular box and find the one that really, really works for you. Then our next slide is be powerful and effective. And so talk to everyone, speak to everyone, be persistent. Some people are inherently going to be inclined to sign our petition and support our efforts. Some people won't. However, all of those signatures count the same. Speak to everyone. A signature equals a signature, and every signature is equally important. Some conversations will be 30 seconds. Some conversations might be 15 or 20 minutes, but those hard-fought signatures count just the same as the easy ones. So don't shirk away from those conversations. Please talk to everyone and be persistent. Key questions for everyone that you talk to are, will you sign? Are you a registered voter? What county are you in? In sales, they call it a close. It's important in a sales pitch to always make sure that you have a close, to have an ask that people can give a hard yes or no to. And for us, will you sign is our hard close, because at the end of the day, this is a signature gathering effort. And so whether or not it seems as if the conversation has gone the way that you wanted, make sure that you're giving that hard closing statement that will you sign, and make the person say no if that's how they are inclined. Now, with that being said, we don't want to argue. Arguing is not a good use of time. Discourse is awesome. Having an exchange of ideas that may be conflicting is great, but arguing is not a good use of time. Arguing goes back or harkens back to what something I referred to earlier, which is, as easy as it is to compel someone to buy into you as an individual and then sign the petition that you want, or and vote the way that you want, can be easy, but it is much, much easier to lose that signature, to lose that vote by being argumentative and having the person that you are speaking with not buy into you as a person, and to use the issue or the ballot initiative that you were coming to speak with them about as a proxy for their dislike of their encounter with you. And so try to avoid arguing as much as possible. And lastly, you don't have to be an expert on all things. If someone asks you a question and you don't know the answer, make a note, ask the campaign, and we'll get back to them. It's much better for someone to have to wait a little bit to get a good answer than to get an answer that may not be true and based on conjecture, and have that be the reason why they don't support the efforts that we're engaging in. Riley, Chris, and myself are pretty good resources, and if we don't have the information that that person requires, then we would love to track it down. And so give us or another resource associated with the campaign that opportunity. And then smile, step, and speak. So one, you're going to spot your voter or person you're going to approach. Then in one continuous smooth motion, smile, make eye contact with the person, and step toward them with the clipboard out. Begin speaking immediately with your best opening line. Those 3 steps are pretty self-explanatory, but the 3 S's: smile, step, speak. And once you get there, just be yourself and be willing to have an open and friendly conversation. Next slide, please. And then, of course, please remember, bring a lot of black and blue pens. The petitions have to be filled out in black or blue ink. Pencil is not accepted, and so let's just make make sure that we have the tools that we need to be successful in our efforts. Take multiple boards if you can for your multiple county books. And so here in Central Ohio, for me, that would mean one board for Franklin, one board for Licking. And if I was canvassing in Reynoldsburg, Ohio, specifically in my city, that might also mean a board for Fairfield County, because I live in the awesome city that is made up of land from 3 different counties. If you can imagine the headache that is for representation. Wear comfortable shoes and dress for the weather. During this initial part of the year, it is chilly and getting chillier, and so make sure that you're dressing appropriately so that you can go to these events and be comfortable and present your best self. I know that personally, I definitely get hangry, and when I am cold, I am not as friendly as I might be otherwise. And so just make sure that you have done the things that you need to do to be the best person, the best version of you that you can be when you're out in the field. Don't go door to door after dark. The first thing that we are concerned about, as much as we care about the legislation, is you all as individuals, your identity and your safety. And so we want you to feel safe, as well as the people who you are encountering out in the field. And so especially when going door to door, just make sure that you're having those conversations in daylight and give everyone an opportunity to feel their most comfortable. Keep it non or multi-partisan. Ohioans from all walks of life, political parties, geographies want to end gerrymandering. So that is not just a Democratic issue. It's not just a Republican issue. And in the state of Ohio, for being pragmatic, the majority of registered voters are actually independents. And so these efforts are not going to happen based on one party or the other. It's going to be a collective of individuals who, if you look at the political spectrum, might lie anywhere on that spectrum. And so just make sure that we are not bringing partisanship into it, and we're approaching this from the space of doing a service for all of the citizens of Ohio. And then again, just don't engage in arguments or debates. It's not a good use of time. I was on the debate team in high school, and so engaging in debates can be gratifying for me on a personal level. However, I just urge everyone to keep the ultimate goal in mind, which is getting enough ballot signatures to get this on the ballot, and then ensuring that we get enough votes to pass this ballot initiative. And so with that goal in mind, I'm going to kick it back over to Chris for some wrap-up items.
Well, Riley, actually. But,
Riley,
yeah.
you're right. Riley, then Chris.
Riley's got a few final details for us to talk through, and then we'll get to the final Q&A section.
Yes. Yeah, so really briefly, and now that we're all pros on signature gathering and how to talk to folks, you'll be able to put all the skills you just learned to use. With the Ohio Environmental Council, we will be hosting our signature gathering kickoff on Saturday, January 20th at 10 a.m., starting at the OEC office. More details are forthcoming, but you'll receive a petition booklet and you'll go collect signatures around Central Ohio if you live in Central Ohio. You can use the QR code there to sign up, which takes you to the same place as that QR code earlier. And then expect to hear more from us next week about this event. And also I'll drop the link in the chat so everyone can use that link as well to sign up for this. If you can't attend this event, I promise you we'll be hosting more signature gathering events in the future, and you can come to the OEC office starting next week to pick up a petition so you can do your own signature gathering. And also, if you're not from Central Ohio, I know that's a question in the chat that we'll address in a second, but still fill out that form so that we can connect you either with an OEC staff member in your area or with a person from the Citizens Not Politicians campaign. And then more information on picking up petitions will come soon as well. But on our next slide, really quickly, so that we can get to our questions as well. What is everyone's plan to gather signatures aside from joining our super fun and exciting kickoff next weekend? Share your plans in the chat now. Where are you planning on going? Who are you going to talk to? All that good stuff.
And while people put their ideas in the chat, to give you all an example, I'll share my plan for the first batch of signatures that I'm going to be gathering. So this is to give you an idea of like the really simple ways that you can do this. On Sunday, I'll be going to an event that will have about 20 or so of my friends. So I'm going to take a petition with me, and I'm going to be that annoying friend who's like rolling up to a party and like, hey, everybody sign this petition while we're hanging out together. And I know probably 95% of them probably will sign the petition, and that's going to be 20 signatures right there for me to get us going. And that's the sort of thing, like, you know, it may feel weird to just like be that person for the next 6 months that's always walking around with a petition, but that is one way to do it, where it's, you know, everywhere you're going, any event you're going to, you never know, one, who's going to be interested in signing. And often those like sort of events like that might be the easiest place to do it, because you can just, you know, strike up a conversation, or just even like in the middle of the event, you know, hit a spoon on a glass and say, hey, everybody, I've got a petition to sign. If you haven't signed it already, come find me. I'll be around all night with the petition. Those are some of the really easy ways that you can do it. And so I see, I'll pause there. That was my, you know, giving you all time to write something into the chat. Riley, do you want to read a few of the examples people are given?
Yeah, Nick said door to door in Licking County. Kathy said friends, family, and at the library. Another person, James, said my plan is to connect with an OSU student group to collect signatures. That's super exciting. Jesse said starting with friends and family. I feel like that's probably where I'll start too. And then asking for their help and getting introduced to their circles of influence. That's a great idea. Really quick and easy way to expand the amount of signatures that you can get.
All right, so we're going to move into Q&A now. We've got a lot of questions to go through, so I'm going to try and do these quickly. So the first one I see in the chat, someone did ask, do we return signature books to you or to the Secretary of State? It's very important that you'll be returning your books to the OEC so that we can take a look at them, make sure there's no issues right off the bat, but then we will be sending all the petitions together to the Citizens Not Politicians campaign. The Citizens Not Politicians campaign then will have a team that's cataloging all of those names to ensure that there aren't any duplicate signatures or any other issues, because an important thing is that if someone does have an invalid signature for whatever reason, they've provided their address, or there might be or it might be someone that you know, and we can actually go chase that person down and have them correct their signature. There are ways that we can do that. So you know, especially if it's somebody you know. Obviously, some people you encounter on the street, that may not be totally possible. But yeah, you do not send them to the Secretary of State. You'll bring them back to us, and we'll get them to the campaign, and they'll do their logistical magic. So that's that question. We got a few Q&As to go through. Okay, so first off, we have, does the name on the petition need to be exactly as the person is registered as a voter? The very short of that is, I believe it needs to be as close as possible. I think there are certain rules, like for instance, my full name is actually Christopher. If I had Chris Tavenor as opposed to Christopher Tavenor on a petition book, regardless of what my registered voter name is, that would probably still count. But if your registered voter name is like Riley Dean and it was Rebecca Dean on the book, that probably would not count. But ultimately, you should have people, if they aren't sure of what name they're registered to vote under, maybe someone just got married and they're doing a name change of some sort, you can have them pull out their phone, look up on the Board of Elections website and see what their name they're registered to vote under. So then Daniel asked, how do people outside Columbus get petition books? I think Riley shared that already, that we will be, if people live outside Columbus, we will, if you're connected with OEC and you're wanting a signature gather with us, we will work with you to get you a book somehow. That might be another organization that's out there that's closer to you that's got some petitions, but if there isn't anyone, we will get you a petition. We're going to make sure that everyone can gather signatures. Then Marcy asked, online voter registration, is it completely paperless? How does a BOE get a signature for someone registering online? I can get you a precise answer on this, Marcy, but I'm pretty certain that the online registration form that they use for voter registration has multiple forms of verification. I think it's like driver's license number and social security number, and those count instead of a paper, like an ink signature for registering to vote online versus a paper one. Jesse asked, is it good practice to reach out to local organizations to help promote the petition? Yes. Riley, do you want to give an example, or Franklin, do you want to give an example of what this might look like? Because I think this is a really good idea that Jesse's naming, and why this might be a good idea. Do either of you have thoughts? Well, okay, I'll answer if either of you have thoughts. So what I would say is, if you're connected with a local organization, you think that the members of that organization might be interested in signing. Let's say there's like a local Kiwanis club that you're like, oh yeah, their members might be interested in signing. Reach out to their organizers, or maybe you're a member or an organizer of it. Ask for permission to come to like one of their events and just be like, hey, hi, I'm XYZ. I'm gathering signatures for the Citizens Not Politicians Amendment. If anyone's interested in signing, I'll be over here all night if you want to gather signatures. That's a really easy way to potentially gather signatures, kind of a low effort area where like there's a regular group that meets once a month of 30 people. You can go and maybe 15 to 20 of them will sign. And then Mary said, I was told that nothing on the petition form can be abbreviated. I don't know the answer to that question, Mary. That's a really good question. We can get you a precise answer, but I would say for now, don't abbreviate it. I can't believe that like writing street instead of ST would be required, but I do think, that's a really good question that I don't know the direct answer to. And then Lori asked, can't come to Columbus, where to get petitions in Cincinnati area. We have OEC staff in the Cincinnati area. We will be making sure as soon as possible that they have petitions that they can connect with people. But just fill out the Google form that has the information where you are, and we'll connect with you to make sure that however soon you can get a petition, whether it's from one of our staff or from someone else, we'll make sure to get your hands on one. And then earlier, Kathy asked a question about who chooses the judges for the Citizens Not Politicians Amendment, for like who chooses the judges that choose the pool of people for the independent commission. That is a really specific question that what I can remember is that they are retired judges, and that 2 of them must have been judges that were affiliated with the Republican Party, and 2 of them must have been judges that were affiliated with the Democratic Party. And I don't remember the precise mechanism for how those 4 judges are selected. Oh, no, I do. Actually, I do remember. The ballot board selects them. So the ballot board is an entity that is already created that the Secretary of State and a few others sit on. They have rules for how they select those judges from the pool of retired judges.
Also, Chris, I was just going to say there's one question in the chat from Paco. Yes. Paco said, can we track how many signatures are gathered every month or closer to the July 3rd deadline?
That is a great question, Paco. We will be tracking our numbers, personally, OEC. Now, as for publicizing how many signatures are being gathered, that's a question for the campaign to decide. I will say, I know historically, ballot initiatives don't always share publicly how many signatures they've gathered. There's a variety of reasons for why they may or may not do this. But sometimes opposition of ballot initiatives, if they know exactly how many signatures have been gathered, that can incentivize particular tactics to oppose those ballot initiatives. But that's what's happened in past issues for ballot initiatives. I will say, they may publicize how many total have been gathered. They may not. It's different on a campaign by campaign basis. We have two more questions in the Q&A. Yes, Monica asks, how do you quickly summarize the purpose of the petition? The shortest way to say that is, Citizens Not Politicians removes politicians from the redistricting process. That's the shortest way to summarize it. Obviously, it's more complicated than that, but that is the shortest process. You know, the way that, or another way of thinking about it, Ohio citizens draw our maps, not politicians. Another way of thinking about it. That it's, you know, we're creating a commission, an independent redistricting commission that's made up of regular Ohioans, not people who benefit from how these maps are drawn. We don't want to have any more politicians drawing districts in order to protect themselves or their friend or their political party. Any final questions? I am going to put my email in the chat. Oh yeah, Marcy, thank you for sharing the voter registration link on Secretary of State. That is a great way to check very quickly. That's an excellent idea. So I'm going to put my email in the chat. If you have any final questions or you think of them later, Franklin, you may want to make it the oec.org, not the orc.org, but I know you're on your phone, so that makes it a little bit more difficult. But yeah, feel free to reach out to any of us if you have any questions. If you fill out that form, we'll be reaching out to you to try and coordinate exactly when you're getting the petition. Noting, if you are ready to like volunteer on next Saturday and you want to come join us for signature gathering, that can also be the first time you get the petition. You can just show up, you've done the training, you know what this is all about, and that can be when you get the petition as well. But we will be at the office all next week, except for Monday, because that is a holiday. So Tuesday through Friday next week, we have the petitions here if you want to come pick one up. Otherwise, we'll be able to connect with you if you live outside of Columbus to make sure you get one. And with that, it is 7 o'clock. So Franklin or Riley, any final thoughts before we close?
No, I don't have anything else. Thank you everyone for coming to the training, and I hope to see a lot of you soon at the OEC office helping us gather signatures.
Yeah, thank you for joining us for our first training.
Indeed, it has been a blast. Really, really excited to see you guys get out and going in the field.
All right, thank you all.